The Grand Galactic Council Chamber could only be described as an extravagant fusion of a circus tent and a corporate boardroom, an apt reflection of the chaotic spectacle about to unfold. Towering crystalline walls encase representatives from thousands of species, each stationed in environmentally tailored pods that cater to their unique biological quirks. High Counselor Zix of the Meridian Concordat adjusted his atmospheric processor, the ripple of his iridescent membranes faintly resembling a sneer. "And now, we turn to the matter of humans," Zix announced, the word humans pronounced with the disdain one might reserve for a pest. A symphony of disapproving sounds echoed across the chamber, clicks, hums, and electromagnetic pulses underscoring the collective contempt of the galaxy's so-called civilized races. "Primitives," chimed Ambassador CLE for the Hydran Collective, disdain bubbling audibly within their fluid-filled pod. "They still rely on chemical propulsion for their spacecraft. Chemical, as if they're cave dwellers playing with fire. They fight wars over invisible boundaries on their planet," added Representative NX-227, their crystalline form refracting light in a pattern of disapproval. "Such behavior hardly qualifies them for galactic society." Zix raised several appendages, signaling for silence. "Precisely. This brings us to today's agenda. Humans have been confined to their resource-rich death world for nearly a standard cycle. Our strategy of limiting their technological access has revealed troubling results. Holograms illuminated the room, displaying Earthlings' rapid advancements, growing spacecraft fleets, enhanced military capabilities, and surprising leaps in reverse engineering alien tech. "They're adapting far too quickly," grumbled General VX of the Hegemony Military Council, their scaled hide darkening with alarm. "What was meant to occupy them for decades has taken mere months." Even with our subtle environmental pressures, another voice interjected, referencing the Council's covert interference in Earth's climate systems. Zix's membranes pulsed with satisfaction as the chamber's mood shifted from ridicule to concern. "Exactly. The Military Council proposes a definitive solution to the human problem." As he spoke, holographic displays transitioned to tactical projections, fleet movements and weapon capabilities designed to neutralize the perceived threat. "Are we seriously considering?" Ambassador Seifer began, their pod rippling with unease. "Preemptive pacification," Zix confirmed. "Humans are too aggressive and too adaptable. Striking now ensures their containment before they outpace us technologically." A quiet voice emerged from the chamber's lower tiers, where a gas-based intelligence occupied a small pod. "Have we explored diplomacy?" Zix's membranes flickered in a gesture akin to irritation. "Technically, the human ambassador is entitled to speak before any resolution is passed. A mere formality." The council chamber grew still as the human ambassador entered. Unarmed, dressed in a plain black suit, and wearing an expression of mild amusement, they seemed utterly unremarkable. Yet their presence alone shifted the atmosphere. "Honorable council members," the ambassador began, their voice calm but edged with an unsettling confidence. "I understand you've been deliberating Earth's future. Allow me to provide some context." Zix began to interject, but the ambassador pressed on. "Humans have a saying, 'Poking the bear.' It refers to the folly of provoking something dangerous under the assumption it won't retaliate." The room stirred uneasily as the ambassador's tone hardened. "You've underestimated us, our adaptability, our resilience, our capacity for retaliation. You've dismissed us as primitives while assuming your superiority grants you impunity. Producing a small device identical to one left behind in a previous council session, the ambassador smiled, a predatory, humorless smile. "This has recorded everything discussed here." Consider this your warning. Abandon your plans for Earth. Because if you don't, you'll learn exactly why humans are known as Deathworlders. And I assure you, the lesson will be devastating. The Council dismissed the ambassador's words as empty bravado, but as their fleet launched its assault on Earth, targeting satellites and orbital defenses with unparalleled precision, they began to understand just how far they had miscalculated. "Sir," a bridge officer reported to General Rax, their tone laced with confusion, "the humans appear to be broadcasting entertainment signals across all frequencies." The humans were transmitting what seemed to be cat videos and something called epic fail compilations. Ambassador Celie observed dismissively from their command pod, the liquid within bubbling with disdain. They're not even attempting to coordinate a defense. Perhaps they resigned themselves to their fate. As expected, the first wave of attacks struck Earth's orbital infrastructure with devastating accuracy. Satellites exploded, space stations collapsed, and debris rained down on the planet. The Council's simulations predicted these results perfectly. "General," another officer interjected, staring intently at their readings, "we're detecting unusual movements within the debris field." "Ignore it," Rax barked, confidence oozing from every scale. "Launch the second wave and target their ground-based defenses." The fleet's weapons charged as they descended into low orbit. Thousands of targeting solutions appeared on the tactical displays, each one aimed at key military installations and strategic sites. Beams of energy and exotic particles rained down on Earth's surface, effortlessly neutralizing the few missiles humans managed to launch in response. "This is almost underwhelming," Rax rumbled. "I anticipated more resistance from the so-called Deathworlders." Then, the debris began to move. What the fleet had assumed to be destroyed satellites suddenly came to life. Thousands, no, tens of thousands of microsatellites, no larger than a human hand, maneuvered with precision that defied expectation. These seemingly harmless fragments swarmed the Council ships like a hive of enraged insects. Interesting shield configuration. Came a sudden interruption on the fleet's comm channels. It was a human global broadcast, now replacing the nonsensical entertainment. Unidirectional shields? Very efficient and very predictable. Panic rippled through the bridge as the microsatellites exploited the blind spots in the Council fleet's defenses, bypassing forward-facing shields with alarming ease. Explosions erupted across the outer elements of the fleet as ships began to vanish from the tactical display. "Sir," an officer shouted, "we're losing contact with 30% of the fleet. They're just gone." "Impossible," Rax roared, his scales darkening in frustration. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They're primitives." About that, the human broadcast continued, its tone almost playful. "You never considered the possibility that we maintain primitive technology because it amused us to let you underestimate us. That our so-called internal conflicts were just practice runs." The tactical display descended into chaos. Each destroyed Council ship seemed to spawn more microsatellites, swarming the fleet in an ever-growing cloud of destruction. It wasn't just a counterattack. It was a calculated dismantling of the Council's forces. "Regroup," Rax commanded. "Fall back to the rally point." "Oh, you can try," the human broadcast mocked, "but you might want to reconsider. You see, those weren't just communications satellites you destroyed. Some of them were hyperspace inhibitors. Crude ones, sure, but, well, you're not going anywhere." Desperation filled the bridge as the fleet's hyperspace drives powered up and promptly failed. "Fascinating, isn't it?" The human voice chimed in again, dripping with sarcasm. "Science is a beautiful thing. The Council fleet's predicament worsened as every screen aboard their ships suddenly displayed a countdown. "What is this?" Rax demanded, his voice tinged with both anger and fear. "Some kind of primitive psychological warfare." "Not at all." The human ambassador's voice cut in, cheerful yet chilling. "We just really like countdowns. Adds a certain flair." As the countdown hit 0, Earth's moon shimmered unnaturally. Its surface rippled like liquid before vanishing entirely, revealing an enormous space station bristling with weaponry far beyond anything the Council could comprehend. "Fun fact," the ambassador continued, their tone almost conversational. "Humans have this thing called science fiction. For centuries, we've been openly publishing our military designs under the guise of entertainment. That's no moon bit? Yeah, we called it." The massive station powered up, its energy readings causing the Council's sensors to overload. Simultaneously, new signals emerged, thousands of them, rising from Earth's oceans. "What is this madness?" an officer cried. "Ships emerging from beneath their oceans? Impossible!" The human broadcast returned, almost giddy with amusement. "Oh, those? Yeah, we've been building massive vessels underwater for decades. Turns out, technology designed for deep-sea pressure adapts surprisingly well to space. Advanced warships, their sleek hulls shimmering as they broke through the atmosphere, joined the fray. Each one dwarfed a Council dreadnought, and there were countless of them. But your energy signatures," Ambassador CLE stammered. "We detected only primitive power sources." "Ah, yes," the human ambassador replied with mock innocence. "Those solar farms and wind turbines? Clever cover, weren't they? You never bothered to scan deeper. Why would you? Primitive, right?" The Council fleet was outmaneuvered, outgunned, and utterly outclassed. Earth's defenders had turned the Galactic Council's arrogance into their greatest weakness. The human vessels moved with an elegance that defied logic, gliding through space as if performing a choreographed ballet. There were no visible signs of communication, no intercepted radio chatter, yet their synchronization was flawless. "Neural networks," the human ambassador explained, their tone laced with pride and amusement. "Not the artificial kind you're thinking of. These are real human brains, linked through quantum entanglement. Turns out all those years of social media were just us practicing for collective consciousness." The Council fleet, despite its overwhelming numbers and technological edge, was helpless. Every attempt to regroup or form a cohesive defense was thwarted before it could begin. The humans were always one step ahead, their ships already in position, their moves perfectly anticipated. How is this possible? The Council commanders wondered silently, their confusion palpable even without words. As if hearing their thoughts, the human broadcast answered, "Those climate modification satellites you seeded in our atmosphere? We reprogrammed them years ago. They've been feeding us tactical data, tracking your fleet movements. Our quantum computers have been running combat simulations since before you even thought about this attack." A fresh wave of chaos erupted on the tactical displays as massive energy readings emerged from seemingly innocuous points in the solar system. Civilian space stations orbiting Mars and Venus revealed their true nature, heavily armed and fully operational bases. "Oh, and about those struggling colonies you noticed," the ambassador added casually. "They weren't colonies at all. They were forward operating bases, fully automated. Just needed the right signal to wake up." The Council fleet now found itself encircled. Above, the colossal moon station loomed, its weapons bristling. Below, The ocean-borne dreadnoughts formed an impenetrable wall. To their flanks, the planetary defenses around Mars and Venus came online, weapons locking onto the fleet. Every human system displayed a level of sophistication that seemed impossible, light years beyond the technology the Council believed humans capable of producing. Why? General Raxa's voice, strained and disbelieving, broke through the tense silence. Why go to such lengths to deceive us? Why maintain this illusion of primitiveness? For the first time, the ambassador's voice turned serious, the playful undertone replaced by something colder. Because, General, humans have a saying, the greatest victory is the battle not fought. We wanted to give peace a chance. Even after we watched you sabotage our climate, restrict our technological growth, and plot our destruction, we still held out hope for diplomacy. Above them, the moon station's primary weapon array began to glow, radiating energy in a spectrum the Council's sensors couldn't fully categorize. The light was blinding, the power unmistakable. We're not actually going to fire that, the ambassador clarified, their tone lightening slightly. It's just that. Well, remember what I said about humans being giant nerds? We'd build it because someone thought it would look cool. And let's be honest, it totally does. A tense silence followed, broken only by the crackle of the human broadcast. You see, General, the ambassador continued, peace was always our first choice. But if you force our hand, well, we have another saying too, never underestimate a nerd with a deadline. The Council fleet, battered and outmaneuvered, realized too late that they had never stood a chance. A final wave of energy signatures filled the Council fleet's sensors, millions of microscopic entities swarming like a living electronic nebula. These fireflies darted between Council ships with impossible precision. Ah, those, the ambassador said, their tone almost apologetic. Those we are going to use. Nanite disassemblers. Don't worry, they're programmed for capture, not destruction. We're not monsters. We just need your undivided attention for the next part. The Council fleet hung frozen in space, every ship encased by an invisible web of nanotechnology. Their weapons were useless, their defenses breached. Their tactical displays showed no way out. Every countermeasure had already been anticipated and neutralized. Now, the ambassador continued with a cheerful cadence, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? And maybe this time, skip the part where you underestimate us. General VX, his crimson scales now almost glowing with rage, made a fateful decision. If we die with honor, he bellowed. All ships, open fire. The ambassador sighed audibly across every open channel. Well, we did try to warn you. All units. Combat protocol, hold my beer, is now active. What followed was less a battle and more a spectacle. A galaxy's worth of humiliation compressed into an hour. Council plasma lances splashed harmlessly against shields made of exotic fractal patterns, which absorbed and redirected energy with casual ease. Meanwhile, the human ships demonstrated why a species from a death world was the galaxy's worst nightmare. Check this out, the ambassador's voice chimed, now sounding more like a giddy tour guide. Quantum torpedoes exist in multiple states until impact. Great at parties. Council ships began exploding before they were fired upon, the torpedoes rewriting causality itself. Crews watched helplessly as their vessels disintegrated retroactively, existing only in memories. And here, the ambassador continued, are our gravity bombs. Tiny artificial black holes that evaporate after a few seconds. The math was a headache, but Hey, it kept our physicists busy between grant cycles. Localized gravitational anomalies turned the Council fleet into a collection of modern art sculptures, stretching, compressing, and folding ships into impossible geometries. We call this next bit the Cal-Z field, the ambassador said. It reverts matter to its raw state. Watch your fancy alloys. Council hulls dissolved into clouds of embonded elements, their crews preserved in containment bubbles. All of this unfolded while the humans' moon station continued to broadcast combat statistics, complete with playful notifications like gravitational domination, quantum supremacy, and your physics are belong to us. A desperate squadron attempted to escape, only to collide with an impenetrable wall of null space, shaped like a cosmic pretzel. Ah, the space-time barricade, the ambassador explained. A grad student came up with that during finals week. Impressive under pressure, aren't they? Human ships darted through the battlefield with casual disregard for conventional physics, their trails spelling having fun yet, in dozens of languages. Jupiter's atmosphere erupted in light as hidden weapons platforms emerged, each the size of continents and painted with racing stripes. Fractal antennas, the ambassador clarified. The paint job? Pure aesthetic. Looks cool, doesn't it? Several Council crews attempted self-destruction, only to find themselves teleported to holding cells. Their explosive systems had been replaced with confetti dispensers hours earlier. The battle, if it could be called that, ended within an Earth hour. No human vessels were lost, no lives taken. The Council fleet was reduced to nothing more than floating wreckage and shocked silence. Now then, the ambassador said with businesslike efficiency, shall we move on to negotiations? Or would anyone else like to underestimate us first? The only response was a synchronized wave of surrender signals. Excellent choice. Oh, and whoever programmed your surrender tones with that sad trombone sound, keeping it, perfect touch. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, panic reigned. The once proud representatives watched their fleet's decimation in vivid, holographic detail. This is impossible, stammered High Counselor Zix, their membranes translucent with fear. It's amazing what you can achieve, the ambassador interjected, stepping into the chamber when you just tell the truth in a way no one believes. The chamber descended into chaos before the ambassador raised a hand, silencing the crowd. Here are the terms, they said, projecting a holographic list. First, stop tampering with our planet. Second, share your tech. Standardized systems make for easier trade. Third, no more interfering with developing species. And lastly, the ambassador grinned, we'd like an apology, written, framed. The chamber sat in stunned silence. You created this outcome, the ambassador continued. All you had to do was play nice. But since you didn't, they gestured to the screen showing the Council fleet's obliteration. Well, here we are. One by one, the representatives began to sign. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors, but as undeniable equals. And across the galaxy, a new motto began to appear on displays, courtesy of the ambassador's AI. Be nice, or find out.